chant the worthy holy song.
Let's read Psalm 37 verse 3 again, this time the full verse. Trust in the Lord and do good, dwell in the land and enjoy safe pasture. This phrase, dwell in the land, really struck me today. The more modern term for this is bloom where you're planted. In other words, don't run away from your troubles. Keep dwelling in the land you've been placed. Keep growing in the soil in which you've been planted. Because it is just where you are that God is calling you to grow and mature in your faith. Here's another angle we could take on this imagery. Remember that when God called these people out of Egypt, He had the promised land waiting for them, a land of milk and honey, the land of Canaan. But remember how the Israelites wandered in the desert for years, moaning and complaining each step of the way. Perhaps this verse could remind us of that. You could step out of the promised land into the desert, moaning and complaining as you go. Or you can remain in the promised land He has brought you to and abide there, despite there being enemies and difficulties in that land. I suppose for you this might mean a job that is frustrating you, that you want to get out of. God may be calling you to leave, yes, but He may be calling you to stay in that place and be a light for Him there. It may be a church community where things are not going so well. You're considering finding a more interesting place. Perhaps God is calling you to move for good reasons, or perhaps He is saying, dwell here in this land and enjoy the safe pasture I provide here. Or it may have to do with a home or a town that you're considering leaving. God does call people to leave very often, but other times He calls them to stay. When I was entering into the ministry, I remember wrestling with this. Do I go into a new land, a new province, a new situation, or do I stay here in my hometown and continue the work God has called me to here? I ended up staying after a long season of prayer and asking advice from trusted Christian mentors and friends, and I'm sure that this was the right move for me. Listen carefully for what God might be saying to you, friends, if you're considering a change in your life. If changing is the right thing to do, go for it. But don't be too quick to assume that God isn't saying, dwell in the land and enjoy safe pasture.